All right, Patreon, we have the Lauren Smith from Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio hanging out with us
Yes.
after it's directly after the live stream that I did on Lauren's show.
Yes. Yeah. So
It's
tit for
weird.
tat.
So yeah. But this is gonna be different because
Yes.
Lauren is gonna share some awesome Bigfoot stories
Mhm.
that I have never heard before, and probably you have not either.
Yeah.
Um, and if you have, then hey, you get to hear them again. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure these are going to be new for everyone. So,
Yeah.
Lauren, and sorry, is there anything else that you want? List? I'm really assuming that everyone knows who you are, which they should.
Appreciate
But
that.
there
Yeah.
are some people in my Patreon that um, I have some really interesting people in my Patreon. Like you guys rock,
Yeah.
and I just want to say that. But anything else you want to add to your bio that people should know about you?
So I my quick bio, if you missed my first interview with Jeremiah about a year
That's
ago, you
true.
can go check that one out. It has my
Yep.
full bio.
Yep.
But I've been researching for over 20 years. My mom had a sighting little over 20 years ago, and so she started researching and started taking me out in the field with her. So normal kids go to Disney World, they go
Mm-hmm.
to summer camp, on their summer breaks and winter breaks. I was out in the woods looking for Bigfoot. So
Nice.
I was learning how to collect evidence, how to document data, working in spreadsheets for lunar cycles. Like that's what I grew up doing on my off time. So then when I became an adult and started researching on my own, my mom started a podcast, and she eventually got me on as a co-host, and we've been going for over a decade. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio, that's Nite. And a few years ago she retired from her job and the podcast, and I took
Yep.
it over, and it is what it is today. So
Also, this is in the Oklahoma area for
yes.
geographic context. And was Nightcallers one of the first Bigfoot podcasts? Had to
um
been one of the early ones.
it was one of the early ones. We were pretty substantial.
Mm-hmm.
We were one of like the OGs,
Okay.
and so we would have a weekly show, and we had all these segments, and we had just this whole host of people on there hosting with us. Like, I don't know how we did a show with that many hosts. I cannot, I think I blocked it out. But we had, just this happen in chat and all of this. And then we went on hiatus for a little bit after I got married.
Mm.
And when we came back, my friend Wes, who had always been in the chat hanging out, had started a podcast called Sasquatch Chronicles, and it was massive. Also around that time, Finding Bigfoot started coming out and stuff like that. So it's like the perfect storm to where it just like blew up, which is awesome. Like, I'm super happy for him. And honestly, he still promotes my stuff on the blog and everything. So like, it's cool. But it was just like being kind of a taboo subject, and then coming back from a 3-year hiatus to like, this guy has this huge podcast, and now there's like a show about Bigfoot, and what, like, it
Mm.
was
Yeah, yeah,
mind
yeah.
blowing. So if
Yeah,
you
it's
mention Bigfoot
crazy.
now, people are like, oh yeah, those yahoos that go knock on trees and finding Bigfoot, and
Yep.
oh, I went to a festival, or I have a shirt. But back then it wasn't like that. It was like,
Wow.
I was terrified to even mention Bigfoot at work. Like, me
Mm-hmm.
being associated with, I thought I was going to lose my job.
Wow.
People, so it was really taboo back then, and now people love to tease me about it, or not tease me about it. They're excited about it. They're like, "Oh, hey, Lauren, tell them what you do. Tell them what you do." So it wasn't like that
Yeah.
back then. So
That's oh man.
anyway, that's kind of my quick history of the evolution of how I got to be here, but also
Okay.
how much Bigfoot has changed over the years
Yeah.
too.
That's
Yeah.
I didn't know you're pals with Wes from Sasquatch Chronicles. That's fun.
We were pals back then. Like, he would come in the
Oh, okay.
chat and
Okay.
just kind of hang
Yeah, yeah.
out,
I
and
got you.
like,
I got
he
you.
honestly kind of just like lurked in the chat back then. Like, he didn't join in a whole lot. I think he was shy. I don't know.
Yep.
But yeah, and then so when he started his show, like, I was just like, blown away. Like, it was really
Yeah.
amazing. But there's been some really great shows over the years that have come and gone, and so Nite Callers is one of the longest standing Bigfoot podcasts.
Amazing. Amazing. Um, So, would you like to start with, you said you have like a recent like sighting
I
encounter-ish story?
I did since I
Okay.
was on your show. Over
Okay.
the summer, I had the closest thing I've had to a sighting. And so I'm very honest, and I'm very analytical of any sighting that I have, or not sighting. I'm sorry. I've never had an actual sighting, what I would call a sighting. I've had a lot of experiences. Um, I've had a lot of growls, whoops, hollers, bluff charges, rock throwing. I've
Wow.
had all of that kind of stuff, but not an actual sighting, what I would call a sighting. So
Mhm.
over the summer, I had the closest thing I've been to a sighting. And so when you've been doing this as long as I have
Yeah.
without a sighting, it's very easy to get jaded and to just be
Sure.
done. Like
That
you're
makes
just
sense.
like you're just fed up with it. And
Yeah.
so when I had my almost sighting, it kind of relit the fire, and I was like, all right, I love this, I
That's
still love
awesome.
it.
That's
So
awesome.
anyway, it was actually at my mom's house, which so at my mom's house, I have been, she lives in a cabin in the middle of the woods, right?
Nice.
I've been growled at. I've had stuff thrown at me.
Wow.
Like, I mean, there's been so much at that place. And so I was sitting on the porch with her. It was a full moon night, and we were sitting there just chit-chatting, and it was like after midnight, and the moon had come out, and I noticed eye shine.
Uh-oh.
And the two most prominent eye shines that I've seen have been on her property.
Wow.
So before I got growled at, I saw eye shine for the first time, and then before this almost sighting, like I saw eye shine again. So I see this eye shine, and it's because the moon color, so the full moon, it's like that bluish white, and that's what this eye color was. And I saw it, and it was moving, and I kept tracking it, and so it's off
Wow.
way down the hill by the wood line, and I kept tracking it, and I was like, I think I'm seeing eye shine, and she said, yeah, I've been seeing it too, and
Hmm.
she pointed out where she thought it was. And so then, we tried to like look like we're not paying attention. So we just kept kind of talking and kind of keeping an eye on it. And it was coming like kind of almost right in front of me. And so
Okay.
I just kept talking, kept talking. And then I just, I looked up and I could see definite eye shine looking at me. And when I looked at it, and I just about fell out of my chair because I was just like, is that, and I'm just like,
Oh man. Yeah.
my adrenaline's pumping. I'm trying not to get excited because it's really easy to get excited in the woods and it's nothing. And I'm trying not to hype myself up because
Yeah.
I don't want to disappoint myself yet again that it's something. And then I see the eye shine turn away from me. And then I see a silhouette in the
No
moonlight.
way. Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I see this silhouette in the moonlight. And
Wow.
at this point, I am leaned forward out of my chair. I'm surprised I didn't fall on my face. I don't know how
Wow.
gravity did not take me down in the way that I was leaned forward, because I mean, I was like doing a Michael Jackson, like
Yeah,
completely leaned forward out
exactly.
of my chair, trying to get as close as I could to take in every detail. And like, because it was so dark, the moon was out, and the only reason I could see the outline was because of the full moon. And I was like, no, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing that. No, I'm not seeing that. And so the whole time I'm actually cussing. I was like, no effing way, no effing way, no effing way. And like,
Nice.
but like under my breath. And
Yeah.
my mom is just sitting there, and I'm like, do you see that? Do you see that? And then it just like fades away. And I'm like,
S-
okay. I was just like, I was freaking out. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay. Did I see it? And I'm like, still looking. And I'm like, did I see it? And I think my mom like got up. I told her what I saw.
Yeah.
She got up, she goes inside, she comes back, and I'm just still sitting there. She said, okay, did you talk yourself out of it yet? And
Oh,
I
that's
said,
funny. That's
I
okay. Yeah.
exactly. And so I'm like,
Yep.
okay, I'm like, no, because I said, I'm trying to talk myself out of it. I said, I'm honestly like, is it the deer feeder? Is it just because there were like 3 trees. So there was one close, one here, and then one directly in front. When I saw what I saw, I could not see the third tree. And when I looked after she came back out, I could see the third tree. So something was standing in front of that tree. And I'm like, is it the
Wow.
deer feeder? Is it the deer feeder? And so I kept looking and I'm like, no, because I can see the metal reflecting off the top of the deer feeder. And that's not where I saw the eyes. And that's not the same outline. And so finally, I got up and I grabbed my flashlight and I just went out to that area and I turned on the flashlight and I looked up at the deer feeder and I looked around. I looked for prints on the ground, impressions. I looked everywhere. I did not find one stinking thing to
Really?
support the fact that
Nothing.
I saw something.
Wow.
Now, the ground there is like pine needles and it's hard packed.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah, I
it's
gotcha.
not great for impressions, but it was like not even scuffled. And I was just so frustrated. And
Wow.
so I went back the next day. I went out and looked again in the broad daylight in case I missed something. Nothing. But I measured and that deer feeder was about 7 foot off the ground.
Okay.
And anyway, so it wasn't clear enough that I can say I saw a Bigfoot, but I saw something. And it, again, like it relit the fire and I'm like, okay, all right.
That's really cool.
It's enough that I'm going to keep going. It's more than I've had ever in my life. And it's more than a lot of people who have said that they've had a Bigfoot sighting. It's more than what they've given me. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to call it
Good
something.
point. Yeah.
It was something. So anyway, it was, I was excited.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
You said something like, I forget the exact word you said. You saw the silhouette and then it like, did you say faded away?
It did. It kind of like,
Okay.
I don't know if my eyes were so dried out from like looking as hard as I could. I don't know. But it's like it was there and then it wasn't.
That's so weird. Yeah, totally. It could be all sorts of different things.
And I thought it's my eyes playing tricks on me because if you look at something hard enough, you're going to start seeing things, and but if I hadn't seen the eye shine looking at me, because that's what caught my eye was because I was still looking over here for eye shine. And then I look over and directly in front of me in between those trees and there's eye shine close. And I was like, what? It moved. And then as I looked at it and identified the eye shine, it turned and then I saw the silhouette and then it just went away. It's like it moved behind a tree down. I don't know. But it was just, it was exciting. It was exciting. And I'm the first one to discount anything that happens to me as natural phenomena or a trick of the light. But there are a few things that I can't explain away. That one I cannot explain away. And also when I saw the orb, I would love to explain that away as anything but an orb. But unfortunately, it was an orb. I can't argue with it.
And I'm not asking like the exact like area where your mom's place is, but I'm curious, like, do like wide area, right? Is it in the same part of Oklahoma as you know what I'm gonna ask, like Area X, or is it
No,
totally different area?
So actually my mom lives in Texas.
Oh,
so she
okay.
lives in deep
Okay.
East Texas. And she lives by Nacogdoches, Texas. So she lives in the piney woods of East Texas.
Oh, East Texas. So that makes sense because East Texas is super squatchy.
It is. And they have big uns down there. They got big old Bigfoots down there. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So the first one she saw, I think, was about 8 foot tall. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's
So wild.
You think about running into that out there. Like I can't even fathom, because whenever someone tells me a height of a Bigfoot that they saw, I always look up at my ceiling and I'm just like, if I saw that in person, like I would mess my pants. There's no doubt. Like I've already accepted this. I should probably wear Depends when I go researching, but
Totally.
I have my dignity as well. So, but yeah, so that was my almost sighting that I have been waiting to tell you about.
That is awesome. Thank you.
It was not groundbreaking. It wasn't like the best sighting ever, but for me, it reaffirmed why I do what I do. So,
I mean, that's the first time you've seen like a silhouette.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah, it is. I've seen eye shine. And I've been bluff charged. I've had things thrown at me. I've been growled at. That was terrifying. I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened to me that can't be explained away that keep me going, but that was my first visual of one, I would say. So, um,
Interesting.
that same property again is where I got growled at by something that was definitely not
Hmm.
any other piece of wildlife. And that property, this was weird. This was a really weird one. I still don't know what to think. Last summer, we were sleeping out on the porch. She has a screened-in front porch, and
Okay.
it's beautiful. She's got a big fan, so you just sleep out on an air mattress on the screened-in front porch, and it's really peaceful.
Nice.
It's like camping with a bathroom right there.
There you go.
So, we were sleeping out there, and we had just been talking, like laying there talking. That's what we do, and we I don't know if we had done a call or we were just hanging out, but we heard this weird whoomp. And I I think we had done a call, like I had done a siren scream or something like that. And I'll do
What's
it for you one day.
hold on. Hold on. That is that a real thing? Like, I know,
Yeah.
yeah, Greek mythology or what have you.
No,
Like,
like so we call it a siren scream. So my mom
oh
actually
my
has audio
goodness.
recorded of what she calls a siren scream, and it's a Bigfoot scream. It's not a whoop, it's not a guttural
Okay.
like
Okay.
growl. It's just this really high pitch like a train whistle, but
Wow.
it's not a train. Like it's
Hmm.
out of a creature. And
Wow.
anyway, so I was trying my best to mimic that. And I was practicing. And oh yeah. Oh yeah. The first attempts, they were rough. It was
Oh,
rough. It was like if
man.
you pulled on a parakeet's tail. It was
Yeah,
awful.
that's so good.
But I have done it the very first time I did it out in the woods. I let loose with a siren scream and the
Mhm.
whole forest went silent.
Wow.
No crickets, no
Okay.
frogs, no birds,
Yep.
nothing. Just like when a Bigfoot's around. And I was like, yeah, I was super proud. And then right after that, we had an owl come up and he was just like super chatty Cathy and would not leave
Yeah,
me
yep,
alone.
yep.
So I think I
Right.
might have dropped a pickup line on an owl. I don't know. But anyway,
Nice.
back to my mom's property. So I believe I was practicing my calls, and I want to say that's when I first came up with the siren scream. And anyway, we were sitting there chatting afterwards, and we heard this whoomp. And I looked at her, and I'm like, "Did you hear that?" And she said, "Yeah, it sounded to me like a car door closing." But go,
Go
do it.
ahead, and then I'm gonna say something.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it sounded to me like a car door closing, but she lives out in the middle of freaking nowhere, and I mean the like 10 miles past the middle of nowhere. There's no car. And so I said, "That sounds like a car door closing, but there's nobody out here." And she said, "It sounded to me like a ground thump or a chest thump." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, that's weird." And so we're sitting there and we kept hearing it. And it would not be any kind of rhythmic. It wasn't like timed intervals. It was just
Wow.
we would just hear it. And I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And so we sat there listening, and it was just the weirdest noise, and it was like this really deep whoop. I mean, it was odd. It was odd. So tell yours, and then I'll tell you what I found the next day
Well,
that made it
uh,
interesting.
this is terrible because I can't say specifically. I've heard that
Mhm.
on multiple things, multiple pieces of media over the last year where it's like people will say, "Oh, I heard something that sounds like a car door slamming, but there's no cars around."
Yeah.
And, like, I think I've heard Cliff say that. I think I wanna say maybe on an episode of the Bigfoot Project with Seth, they talked it like, it's
Yeah.
weird because these are, like, all different
Yeah.
parts of the Bigfoot spectrum, and they're all
Right.
talking about, like, "I heard something that sounded like a car door when I was" and I know it was, like, somehow related to Bigfoot, and that's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the whole Bigfoot phenomena in itself
Yeah.
is that it's geographically diverse,
Yep.
but it's the same stuff happening.
It's so weird.
And so I always tell people Bigfoot's not just, oh, there was Patty and oh, there's a swamp ape. Like it's
Mhm.
thousands and thousands of people are having the same experience
Yep.
all across the world.
Totally.
Um, so the next day, there's some other weird stuff that happened, but the next day I had walked out, and I always kind of like walk along the fence or the wood line and just kind of look for sign or whatever. And I walked over behind the garden. It's really well hidden and it's absolutely pitch black at night. And there's an old burn pile sitting there, and there was a broken laundry basket turned upside down on top of this wood pile.
Hmm.
And I saw it and I was like, huh. And I just walked over, and next to it was a stick, like it looked like a club. It was a stick
Okay.
with a big wooden piece on the end. It looked like a club. And I was like, no way. I was like, nah. Come on, Lauren, nah. So I pick it up and I'm like, all right, let's see. And I whomped it on that basket. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me right now. So I put the stick down and I ran back to the house and I said, Mom, come sit on the porch. Just sit here, listen, and tell me what you hear. And then I ran back over there and I hit it, waited, whomped it again. And I went back and she's like, what was that? And I said, did it sound familiar? She's like, isn't that what we heard last night? And I said, yeah. I said, that was that laundry basket over there. There was a little club next to it.
That's
Whoomp.
so weird.
Isn't that weird? I was like, that's a
Whoa.
little too outside of my little
Yeah.
researcher brain. And I'm like, oh, like, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. And again, it was way over behind the garden. There's no way we could have even spotlighted that area if we had known what that sound was. They were protected. Whatever was doing it was protected over there. And that may not have even been the sound. Maybe it was a ground thump. Maybe it was somebody with a car. I don't know. But I can tell you, like, that was the exact noise. And it was over there just hanging out. And I'm like, so I went over there. I mean, I looked for impressions. I did find like a trail that led to that. And it was like behind it, and there was like a fallen log that you had to. I tried to climb over it, and it hit my navel area, and so I ended up like having to literally climb it to get over it. And the top was kind of missing bark, and then behind that was just this kind of, it was like a game trail but higher, and this clear trail, and then it just faded off.
How tall are you?
5'5".
Okay.
So
Interesting.
something could have stepped over it or gone under it. I don't know, but it was just weird. It was weird because I'm like, what other animal would walk up and be like, boom, you know? It was weird. And I had done that weird siren scream and like, stop. I'm going to do it. I have a recording of me doing it and I'm going to send it to you.
I have
but you
to
cannot publish it.
I will.
Okay.
I promise I won't publish it anyway.
Appreciate that.
But I would love that to become like the new like Ohio Howl.
Yeah.
Where like all of a sudden, like on Bobo's next documentary, he does the siren scream. Yeah, it's just like, it'd be really funny.
Like it's pretty effective. Like the first time I did it, like I said, when it shut up the entire forest, I was like, my mom looked at me and she was like, that was awesome. Wow. Like she was so proud and impressed. And for her to be proud and impressed, a 20-year veteran researcher, I was like pretty giddy about it. But anyway, yeah, so that's just some weird, honestly, just like some weird stuff that's happened to me. But you know, there's so many, like you asked me before I came on, you asked me just to share some amazing Bigfoot stories, and like
that was an amazing Bigfoot story, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think
that
was
like
amazing.
I have been doing this for so long that I have this like insane catalog of Bigfoot stories in my head that obviously don't belong to me. They belong to people I've had on or stories I've heard.
That's a tricky
and
part.
So it's like my brain is kind of like Google. Like you have to narrow it down. Do you want water Bigfoot sightings? Do you want animals being ripped out of their collars and eaten Bigfoot sightings? Do you want like you know, that's so. And then like my favorite Bigfoot story is my mom's sighting of the one that belly crawled up to her house. Like that's my favorite.
So that one before, because that one sounds awesome. But before, has your mom ever put trail cams up at her place?
She has not. She has not. I want to say she did at her old home. But no, she hasn't at her new home because she kind of has like she did clear cut and put lights up to keep them away from the house.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. How far
Yeah.
away is the nearest neighbor?
She finally got new neighbors. They live maybe a mile,
Okay.
or
Okay.
I don't 3/4 of a mile, but like across the pipeline, like about it's about a mile. It's pretty far away.
That's wild.
Before that, 3 miles.
Oh shoot. Hold on real
Hmm.
quick. This is super unprofessional. I'll be right
It's
back.
okay.
Sorry.
It's
My
good.
computer was about to die.
I
Yeah, right.
think that would have been more unprofessional than like
Exactly.
running away. um,
Um,
but
yeah.
yeah, so her nearest neighbor lives pretty far away. And like whenever I was there and hearing like the whoomp and stuff, her neighbors weren't even there. They were in Houston seeing family. So
Oh wow.
yeah.
So yeah, that would be if you wouldn't mind sharing the story about the one trying to sneak up on your mom's house. That would be cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, then we'll end with that. That'll be cool.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I wasn't there for this one. Thank God. I'm thankful. I'm fine with that. Like I'm fine. It's belly crawling Bigfoot is the freakiest thing that Bigfoot does, in my honest opinion, and also why I named my membership program after Nite Crawlers because, and J Dodd, shout out to J Dodd for doing the artwork for that
Yeah,
because
no, that was sweet
it was
artwork
legit.
too.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So that kind of came from my mom's story, and so for years, by the way, she never told this story because
Wow.
she thought that it made her sound crazy. Not that she saw Bigfoot, no, that it
Mm,
was belly crawling. And she would not tell this story on any show because she thought it made her sound crazy. So when
wow.
I went and I gathered shows where other people that we know personally have had this experience. And so
Really?
she finally started sharing it, but she wouldn't
Okay.
even share it. Okay, so she and her friend Rhonda were sitting on the front porch again at her house. And they were, just kind of like talking to the Bigfoot, just like joking and like, hey, come on out, bud, just stuff like that.
Right.
And they had seen a Bigfoot sitting. There's this really big tree. It's not there anymore, but there was this really big tree off to the side of her yard. And this is back when, before she clear cut or put up any lights. So the woods kind of like pressed in on the house. They saw something by the tree
Hmm.
and they saw it kind of peek and then go back and
Okay.
then peek and then go back. And they were like, okay, like, all right, come on out, little buddy, because they're a
Hmm.
lot braver than I am. And again, I think it was a full moon, but there were clouds. And so the clouds were going over the moon. It would get dark and light and dark and light. And so they were sitting there watching this thing peek around the tree. And they kind of jokingly said, hey, come on out, little buddy, all of that. And they kept chatting. And then I want to say it was Rhonda had looked on the ground, like in front of the porch. And she was like, hey, what is that? She said, is that thing? And they see this line, like they could see the moon reflecting off the back of this thing, and it
Oh
was just
wow.
laid out flat, but it was
That's weird.
up. It's kind of like it wasn't army crawling.
Hmm.
It's like it was on its fingers and toes, just,
Just like in the illustration.
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much just tickle tickle tickle, and it was
Whoa.
moving, and it
That's
was
creepy.
slowly inching closer. And so the clouds are going across the moon. And so it's
Hmm.
like they can see it and then they can't, and then it's closer. And then they see it and then they can't, then it's closer. I mean, it's just like a horror film. And
Yeah.
the way it was moving freaked Rhonda out. And she got to the point she was like, okay, that's close enough. And because my mom said before that Rhonda had like grabbed her arm and was squeezing her arm.
Oh
And
wow. Yeah.
that Rhonda, every time the clouds would clear, she would jump. And
Hmm.
every time she would jump, my mom would jump. And so it was like, my mom finally was like, do you want to go inside? Like, she was getting pissed. She's like, because my mom, back then especially, she wasn't scared of nothing. And so she was like, do you want to
Yeah.
go inside? Do you want to stop? She's like, you can go. That's fine. So Rhonda, and I think she was nicer than that, but Rhonda finally was like, that's close enough. And the clouds went over the moon.
Hmm.
And then when the clouds cleared, the ground was clear. There was nothing there. And so my mom was like, where did he go? And Rhonda's like, where did he go? Like, she's freaking out. She thinks
Oh
he's about to
man.
pop up over the side.
Yikes.
The porch was not screened in at that time. So she's thinking this thing's about to pop up out.
Hmm.
And then my mom sees something over by the tree. And she thought it was a bush blowing in the wind. But then she realizes it's this thing. And she said you could tell because it had the outline, and it was like sitting there and it was rocking. And she said it was
That's so. This is the creepiest thing ever.
right. It was I
Yeah.
like, this is my favorite story because it's I'm glad I wasn't there. And so she said
Yeah.
not
It's
only
creepy
was it
stuff.
rocking, she said it like was rocking, and then it got faster and faster and faster to where it was just like rocking inhumanly fast. And it's like, she said it felt like whenever Rhonda said, that's close enough, that it upset it because they had said, hey, come on out, little buddy. And then they freaked out and yelled at it. And so it's like rocking. And again, that's like, projecting a human emotion
Yeah.
onto it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the idea they got because it was rocking inhumanly fast. And then, like, I think Rhonda just gave up and she was like, I'm out. She could not handle the rocking, and she got up and went inside. And then when my mom looked back, it was gone.
Jeez, that's so weird. That's like,
So, and I mean, this is
man.
not like that belly crawling with the fingers and the toes. I've had a report of them going across the road like that. I've had a
Wow.
report of a friend of mine was flaring on a high line, like a power line high line,
Hmm.
and they were looking. This was a rookie mistake. They were looking for signature standing up or human shape, and then they saw this signature, a long signature on the ground, and then it started moving.
Hmm.
And when they finally, I don't remember how it went, but they basically realized that Bigfoot is crawling, it's belly crawling. And then another friend
Dang.
of mine, he had one belly crawl up to, like, him and his friend were sitting in the truck with the windows down listening, and it belly crawled right under the door. And they didn't hear anything. They never, like, you couldn't hear a sound. It made no noise, but it was just on its fingers and toes. Like, can
That's
you
like the
imagine?
creepiest thing.
It's creepy, but can you imagine the muscle mass and strength it takes to do that?
That's true. Yeah, that's wild.
Especially the bulk of one of these creatures. Like, it freaks me out. Belly crawling, it freaks me out. So whenever I'm out in the woods, and I'm
Does it really freak you out?
yes, so whenever I'm out in the
Okay.
woods and I'm
Yeah.
like looking and I don't see anything, I have FLIR, I don't see any signatures. I'm standing there, I can see all the trees, and then I always get this little insidious thought, and it's like, what if it's belly crawling up right now? And I'm just like, and I usually, that's when I start getting like real jumpy and like, yeah. So
Wow. Not
anyway,
cool.
so I'm gonna
Not
leave
cool.
you with that little gem.
Yeah, that's gonna be like Nightmare City because it's so
Yeah,
dang creepy. So that's literally the creepiest Bigfoot story I've ever heard. Just because that's such a weird.
it's creep. It's
Both of those
weird.
behaviors are like somehow like it's like instability, like
Yeah, yeah.
instability. It's just weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's honestly freaky, and I
Yeah.
believe my mom, of course, like, she has no reason, like, and the fact that she wouldn't even share that for
Yeah.
so long because she was like,
It's
I sound
crazy.
crazy. And I'm like, no, that Bigfoot was crazy. That's who was crazy. But
Mm,
anyway, so when you come to Oklahoma to visit me, I'll take you out in the woods and we'll find some belly crawling Bigfoot. It'll be fine.
awesome. Can't wait.
Thank you, Jeremiah, for
Yeah.
having
Thanks,
me
Lauren.
on and letting me
You
share
got
that.
it. All right. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.